That's Photograph by Def Leppard, a live version from the new album, which is coming out at the start of June. It's called Mirrorball. Joe Elliott from Def Leppard is my special guest on the programme tonight. Did you know when you wrote that tune that you'd written a killer track? Because as soon as I heard that, I thought, what on earth is this?
We did.
Great song.
I'll be honest with you, even in its inception, that song was actually... majority of that song was a leftover from the High and Dry sessions, but it had a totally different introduction. We obviously weren't happy with it, hence it never got finished, and we just left it on the back burner. We've always had songs. Every album we've done has got something that was a leftover from the one before, because if the rest of the world hasn't heard it, it's essentially still a new song. But I remember we were down in a studio in Battle, which is near Hastings, in '82, and I was watching the cricket. Steve and it would have been Pete Willis at the time, were in the studio with Mutt, and they were messing around with this song, trying to come up with an intro for it. And I remember hearing the leak through the door the first time I heard that opening riff, the da-da-da, da-da, da-da, and a lot of us just stood up and ran in and went, what is that? And then you just know, because then the rest of the song just fell into place. Most songs are jigsaw puzzles, and you're just missing a couple of bits. So you look round under the couch and you find it, and it's the same kind of thing. You just have to wait, and sometimes you just have to be patient. Sometimes it takes 18 months, sometimes it takes 18 years, sometimes it takes 18 minutes.
It's amazing, isn't it? And you do so much touring, you've done so much touring. Do you write on the road, or is it almost impossible to do that?
We have in the past. We've never been very good at it. We've mostly scrapped everything we've written on the road, but bits of it have survived. The one song that did, in its entirety, musically at least, survive was a song called White Lightning off the Adrenalize album. But most of the time it's bits and bobs. Right up until the Sparkle Lounge album, we wrote most of the Sparkle Lounge album on the road. But we weren't just messing around with little machines. We set up the Sparkle Lounge. We had a little recording unit, and we had a tiny drum kit, and we had the guitar amps, the little toy carrying ones that are about 12 inches square, just so that, you get a sound going. And we would jam these ideas out between soundcheck and gig. We'd put 2 hours aside nearly every day and actually make ourselves work really hard at coming up with songs. And, of course, the more we went into this room, the more the crew would come and start putting fairy lights up and making it look like a cool room, hence the title Sparkle Lounge. And we did write the majority of the last album on the road, and I think it gave it a certain energy that you don't get when you're just sitting around on beer crates scratching your head.
And looking back at the career, Joe, it's interesting. When you became this huge sort of global phenomenon, huge rock band that Def Leppard became, particularly in the 80s when it first all kicked off for you with those albums, did that come easily to you? Was that incredibly difficult to take? Was it? I mean, it must have been a life-changing experience, obviously.
It was a life-changing experience, and no doubt anybody that ever met me back then, somebody somewhere caught you on the hop, getting in an elevator or out of an elevator, or somebody wanted to take your photograph and you're having breakfast in the cafeteria, which you learn to not do anymore. Otherwise you just never have any peace. But generally speaking, I think we handled it quite well, because without wanting to sound arrogant, when we were 17, 18 years old, we were marching around Sheffield going, we're going to be the biggest band in the world. And I think you have to have that belief anyway. But did you really think that, or was that just what all the young bands said? No, we really did want it. We wanted it. I don't know whether we thought it, but, why bother buying a lottery ticket if you don't think you can win?
Yes, good point.
Might as well save the quid, I think there's a way of doing it. I think one of the reasons that the Gallagher brothers in Oasis always came across as arrogant is because they wanted it so badly. But I think if you want it badly, you'll get it. You will do whatever it takes. And
so when it happened to you, because most people want that and it doesn't happen to them, your dream came true. You did become certainly one of the biggest bands in the world. When you got that, was it what you expected it to be?
Well, yeah, it was, because I always knew that there was always going to be good and bad. There is, in any form of life, there's good and bad. A lot of hard work has to go into it. The image back in the 70s was that it was an easy life. It was, you didn't have to do anything. You were on Top of the Pops for 3 minutes every 3 months, and that's all you do. It's not like that. If your eyes are open in this band, you're working. You're doing something. You're thinking. And thinking takes a lot of energy these days, It's not just perspiration, it's inspiration. There's a lot of stuff that has to go into it. But it was everything I dreamed it would be. But the bad, like Steve Clark lost his life to this kind of pressure. Rick lost his arm. We survived somehow. and it makes you appreciate the good times a lot more.
And he's an incredible character. I remember interviewing you a couple of years ago. We're talking about Rick the drummer. And you said to me that you think he's probably a better drummer now than he was before his accident when he lost his arm.
Absolutely, because he doesn't play to his ego.
Yeah.
He plays to the song. It's all like, listen how fast I can play.
Yeah.
He plays to make the drums fit with the vocal, fit with the song, so that they push along the important parts, you know. And then we have certain features that make Rick look, you know, extremely talented, which he is, you know.
Yeah.
But they show off his ability. Like, for example, on the live album, there's 3 new songs.
Yeah.
One of them is called Undefeated, and it starts off with this whole big drum loop thing. And he's playing all the way through that song is superb, as it is on the entire live album. And it's all him. It's like, it's not been redone. I mean, you can't drop the drums in, you know.
No, of course not.
He's a real drummer, and he pulls it all off. And he does a little kind of mini solo right at the end of an instrumental song we do called Switch 625. And you can hear how his ability to pull all that stuff off with 3 limbs is as good as most drummers with 4.
It's incredible. He's an incredible character, isn't he, really?
He certainly is.
Absolutely right. I was speaking to Midge Ewer recently, and as a Thin Lizzy fan, you will know that for a short time he was in Thin Lizzy.
Indeed,
he
yeah.
toured in America. And I said to him, how close is the world of heavy rock to what we see on Spinal Tap? And he said, you wouldn't believe how close it is. Has that been your experience?
Well, I once read a comment from Tom Waits. He says, when I watched Spinal Tap, I cried because it was so close to my life. So if it's affecting Tom Waits, you can only imagine what it does for anybody that is a 5-piece rock band or a 4-piece rock band, as Spinal Tap were. We've yet to have the exploding drummer, but the Hello Cleveland movement happens all the time.
Where you can't find your way to the stage.
Yeah, you see, but the thing is, it's easy to laugh at, but here's the difference. A band like us or Bon Jovi or Maiden put ourselves in that position, which makes us braver than the Smiths, makes us braver than the Style Council. They wouldn't have a drum riser that goes up in the air and spins round that you could get stuck up there for the rest of the gig.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they'd be too scared to do it.
Yeah.
We have bigger cojones than most pop bands. That's the difference.
You're not going to find Paul Weller doing that, Joe. It ain't going to happen.
Doubt it. But he's talented enough not to need to do it, I suppose. That would be his way of looking at it. We just like to put on a spectacle.
And
there's nothing wrong with watching Kiss. They're fantastic to watch, you know.
Absolutely right. And it's showmanship, of course.
Absolutely.
When you took a year off last year, did you have incredibly itchy feet? Because sitting around doing whatever you were doing after being on the road for all those years, is that hard to get used to, or was it a nice break?
It was the busiest year I've ever had.
Ah.
My wife gave birth to a little boy in December of 2009, so I got to spend a bit of time with him, and my God, I am the speed king of nappy changing. Off on minute 10, including the clothes. I was writing, I was just hanging out, I was watching movies, I was having a ball, taking my clothes out of a wardrobe instead of a suitcase, sleeping in my bed. And generally just, I was archiving a lot of old Leppard stuff for future release. I had an absolute mountain of VHS tapes that somewhere in the middle of a 3-hour tape, there was a 3-minute performance of Leppard on Top of the Pops, hard driving them all and bouncing them all onto DVDs. So I've got rid of 3 tons of VHS tapes and swapped them out for 25 DVDs.
And it must be odd. If you see a Top of the Pops appearance of you in 1984 or something, I mean, is that like looking at somebody else? Can you remember it? Or was it just...
You can remember certain parts of it.
Yeah.
You basically, like say, you develop a good sense of humour, especially at the fashion, But that's what it is, I mean, people will laugh at mullets and ripped jeans now, but they weren't laughing at the time.
Of course not.
If they're laughing at the time, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's when Vanilla Ice got kind of shunted to one side.
Well, I'm 47, and I still pretty much dress like I did when I was 17.
Well, don't we all? I mean, jeans and T-shirts never really go wrong with, can you?
We're nearly out of time. It's great to have you on the programme. What is next now for Def Leppard? When's the next batch of brand new material coming out, Joe?
Well, as I mentioned, there's 3 new tracks on the live album. We had to stop ourselves doing a 4th. Otherwise, we'd have missed a release date. So we are kind of quite fertile at the moment when it comes to writing. We shall do some more Sparkle Lounge stuff on the road. We shall get in there. And then we're over to the States for 50-odd shows. And we got Heart coming out with us. which I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, wow, they were great.
I've never actually met the Wilson sisters, so to have them as our special guests for an entire American tour is just phenomenal.
Oh, brilliant.
And then we may, hopefully, be able to get back into Britain towards late autumn, early winter or whatever. And
coming to Wales?
Do some...
Come and play in Wales.
I hope
they
so.
love you, yeah?
I'd love to do some arenas, you know. I'd love to come back, like we did with Whitesnake in 2008. It was a fantastic tour.
Yeah, they love you here.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Joe, it's great to have you on the programme.
My pleasure.
The album comes out at the start of June. It's called Mirrorball. I'm going to let you choose the final track from the record to play. So what do you fancy spinning?
You want a live one?
Yeah.
I think you should go with Rocket.
Okay.